friend. How are you doing today? My name is Mary and this is Happily Ever Esch. I am so glad that you have decided to stop by today to chat about books. Today I want to discuss all the books I read in December and then what I plan to read in January. So if you're interested, grab yourself a cup of coffee. I am freezing in my house right now. We are the people who keep it, just tolerably cold in our house. My husband is embarrassed when our house is dirty. I'm embarrassed when people come to my house because I'm like, I'm sorry, you're probably freezing. But yes, so get a warm cup of coffee or tea and we can enjoy it together. So cheers, let's talk about books, friends. So the first book that I finished in December, did not start it in December, but finished it, was the 9th book in Louise Penny's Armand Gamache mystery series, which is called How the Light Gets In. I'll put a little insert a clip, picture, whatever here, so you can see the lovely cover. Doesn't it just look so cold and wintry? And the setting was perfect for the holiday season, for a wintry read. So I'm not going to go into huge details on the plot of this book just because it is the 9th book in a series, and I am very much in the camp that you need to read the Armand Gamache books in order. I mean, need is a strong word, you do you, but I feel like you would get the most out of this series if you read them in order, just because all 9 books have been one big plot, like leading up to this book. And in all of these books, they do have their own mystery story within them. So if you pick this up, there is an individual mystery in this book that you could just read and enjoy. But I will say that story took a huge backseat in this book to the overarching plot line that is wrapped up in this 9th story. In the book before this, which is called The Beautiful Mystery, stuff hits the fan, things get real, and I kind of knew that this book was going to be very, very important and kind of wrap up a lot of stuff up, and it sure did that. It definitely feels like the conclusion to this huge plot line that's been building. And that being said, I did feel like, because we've spent so much time and interest and this plot is so intricately built, that it did feel very rushed towards the end, that like all of a sudden we are like wrapped up with it. There's a lot of little side incidents and things that I would have liked more information on, but I mean, Louise Penny is still a master of her craft, in my opinion. I want to crawl into her carefully crafted world. Like, her atmosphere is just so strong. I want to eat the food that she writes about. I want to be sitting by the fireplace reading a book with Armand Gamache and his dog and their friends. Like, I want that so badly. Louise Penny, like, I would live anywhere that she wrote. Does that make sense? I would live the places that she writes, minus the murder, because man, does she just craft this like enveloping atmosphere. I love it. And these characters are just so familiar to me at this point. They feel like old friends. I feel like I know them. I know a lot of times their motives or what they might be thinking, and I think that's a testament to how good of characters that Louise Penny writes. This is definitely like the longest series I've ever read, and so maybe this happens in a lot of other series, but I haven't felt that way about characters, honestly, since I was a child. So I absolutely love these books. But I must say, I am interested to see how she moves on from this. And when you look on Goodreads, the 10th book, I don't remember what it's called, is definitely her lowest rated. It's still like almost a 4-star or a 4-star. But like when you typically go look at her books, they're almost like a 5-star. So you can definitely tell she was probably trying to figure out where the series is going to go, because so much wrapped up in this book. And also Armand Gamache is like getting like on in age, like he can't, stay on forever. So I am interested to see where she takes this all, but I'm along for the ride. I will read any book she writes in this series. I love these books. The next book that I finished was Glorious Weakness by Alia Joy. I have lent it out to a friend. That's how good I thought this book was. I had to give it to someone to read, so I don't have the physical copy here with me, which I'm also a little bummed about because I would have loved to have read you some beautiful quotes from her work, but maybe another time, maybe I'll make a quotes video just for that book because it's really, really good. Insert the lovely cover here. This is Joy's personal memoir about how God used her weakness for his glory. It's also her exploration of how she comes to faith in Jesus, and her taking us through some very personal moments in her walk with Jesus. There's oftentimes a fear of our weakness and what it says about us, but Joy really discusses and delves into how we shouldn't be afraid of our weakness because that's where God is going to show himself to us the most. Joy mixes her own personal experiences and how God has been teaching her in her personal life along with teachings from the Bible. It made me really consider my own weakness, my own poverty of spirit, as she likes to say, and I think that's such a great phrase, your poverty of spirit. This isn't a punishment or something that I just need to deal with on my own, but that it's a way for me to more intimately know Jesus, especially because he walked on this earth and was tempted and went through these things, and so that's what brings us closer to him and his glory, and it's an opportunity for the Lord to enter in. And I really, really loved this book. It was beautifully written. Her writing a lot of times just feels like poetry, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So I'd love to chat more about that book if you're interested or if you've read it. I thought that it was really good, really convicting. Again, as a Christian reader, this book is obviously about religion, so you need to know that going in, which I'm sure I made that clear in discussing it, but I really, really enjoyed Glorious Weakness by Alia Joy. The next book that I finished in the month of December is Plain Song by Kent Haruf. I talked about Glorious Weakness and Plain Song in my vlog, and I will put it up in a card above just so you can go and get my more like in the moment thoughts. But I really enjoyed this one too. I had a great reading month. I didn't get I would say it's an average quantity reading month for me, but the quality was extremely high, and that's really all I can ask for, right? I think that this is the start of a beautiful relationship with Kent Haruf. Face value, this story is just a simple story about a small town called Holt in Colorado and the people that inhabit it. That sounds funny. Inhabit it. This story is so much more than that. It's about found family and how community happens. It's about small towns and the mundane events of life, but showing how often those mundane events, those small events, make the biggest impact overall. We follow various characters who are often at a crossroads. We see them grappling with decisions that need to be made, and then how those decisions go on to affect them, but also to reverberate through the lives of more than just them, and how it affects the community, and how it affects community, and like how their decisions help harbor and make community, if that makes sense. This is also very much at times a coming of age story. It seems that not only are the young people coming of age and being changed, but also all of the characters. I think it kind of asks the question, do we ever really come to age? Do we ever, like, is there a pinnacle that which we reach? Because there's so much growth that all of these characters go through, and there's so many pivotal moments that almost bring them to a new level of knowledge and understanding about themselves, about other people. And does life really have much value if we're not reaching that next pinnacle, if we're not coming to age in some way? Needless to say, I really enjoyed this book, but I don't want to trick anyone to thinking that this is like a page turner, or, you know, there's these huge events. It's really quiet and subtle, but it is utterly compelling in its own right. I did want to go back, and I did want to sit with these characters, and I did want to turn the pages, but I can see why someone might not feel that way about this book. I think there's another aspect that I'm from a really small town, and the way that he writes about small towns and the people who inhabit them just kind of like, I felt it in my soul. So I think that there is something like also about me and how I grew up, and that helped me connect with the story, but I don't think you would have to have that experience to also connect with it. I think it was a special aspect that really touched my heart. Also, there were some aspects of this, especially when Harif is writing about the two young boys, where he wrote things, he wrote moments that really just like shot me back to my own childhood. Things that I will never actually get to experience again, but I got to get a taste of it through this book. A lot of times in the way that the world is being revealed to these boys, and they're kind of like, I guess, coming out of their naivety. I don't know how to say that word. Naiveness. It's always in a very gentle way. Sometimes not so much. Maybe he just writes it in a very gentle way, but it was almost like these small moments that are happening that are just kind of like wiping like the mud from their eyes in a way, that I think it happens as to young children. That's, you know, we learn, we grow, we can't always stay in this small protected bubble. But how Harif allowed me to experience some of those things again through his writing, and these scenes and these moments with these characters was really beautiful. So this is a trilogy. I absolutely plan to read the rest of the books. I have at least one more book on my shelf by Kent Harif. Yes, Our Souls at Night. I have Our Souls at Night, which a lot of people really love, and so I loved this book. The more I sit with it, the more I love it. So, yay. Enough gushing. Last but certainly not least, and I will try not to wax eloquently about this book for too long, but that is North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. And obviously I love this book. It's one of my favorite books of all times. It was a reread for me. I adore Elizabeth Gaskell. In my opinion, she just kind of writes the perfect classic, and nothing's perfect. It is a piece of its time still, but I just love like all of the aspects, the elements, if you will, that she puts into her writing. There is commentary on the economy and class. There is commentary on kind of our own preferences of like place and how we're raised. So the main character is raised in this idyllic, kind of naive, quiet, rural South, and she goes to the North and is confronted with so many things that are different to her ideals and her preferences. It's dirty, it's loud, it's quick, it's a little rough, but then she comes to appreciate and love the North for what it is. And so I love that transformation, her own personal growth and her own personal, I guess, reckoning that like life, just because it's her preference, isn't perfect either. And also she just writes really compelling, readable classics. You want to keep turning the pages, you want to know what's going to happen, and that's all I could ask for in a book. Yes, obviously much love for Miss Elizabeth Gaskell as well. Okay, on to the books that I'm going to read in January, or plan to read. We'll see. So we're gonna go quick because I've been talking too long about the other books. The first book that I'm currently in the middle of, started in December, holidays got crazy, didn't get a lot of reading done, is The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis is a philosopher. Would you call him a philosopher? Intellectual giant is what the flap says. Wrote a lot about religion and Christianity. This book is a piece of fiction. It is written between a wise, I don't know why I assumed he'd elderly, I guess he could be a young and wise, kind of wizened, if you will, demon who is writing to his nephew, who is kind of like apprenticing and trying to corrupt a human soul. It's about temptation, it's about the human condition. It's supposed to be a little bit funny, it's supposed to be convicting. I'm really enjoying it so far. About halfway through, reading it pretty slow because I want to glean and learn from what C.S. Lewis is trying to say, but he wrote it in a really interesting, readable piece of fiction. So yes, again, piece of religious writing, so know that going in, but I am enjoying it. Next book I am also currently in the middle of is The Black House by Peter May. This is set in the Isle of Lewis in Scotland, and for my little reading challenge that I'm doing with my shelf, shelf, is Travel, a book set outside the United States, obviously set in Scotland. I don't know if I've read a book set in Scotland, so I'm really enjoying it. This is a mystery series, very much in the vein of The Dry, although this was written before The Dry by Jane Harper, where we have a detective going back to where he's from and trying to solve a mystery. So we have that aspect, but then we also have his aspect of like learning about him, his childhood. So that's really what reminds me of The Dry, is that kind of storytelling style. We're not getting shorter with the talking about books. Really enjoying that about halfway through and excited to continue on with that book. All right, the other 3 books that I hope to read from my shelf. The first one is to fulfill the prompt family saga, and I picked The Namesake by Jubal Lahiri from my shelf. This, really all I know about it is that it's a family saga following a family who moved from India to the United States. I read Interpreter of Maladies in 2018 and loved it. It was one of my favorite books of the year. Still think about it, still want to reread it, absolutely adored it. So I'm very excited to get to this one. I finally am hopefully going to get to 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, and that fulfills the category BookTube recommends. And I think if anyone has watched BookTube for any amount of time, you would agree that this is a BookTube darling. I read the first and second in the Grisha trilogy a while ago, a couple years ago. Loved the first one, could kind of have cared less about the second one, so I didn't continue on. That happens a lot to me with series. I will like be so invested in the first one, and then I just cease to care. I don't know why that is, but regardless, I'm gonna try this out because people seem to love this a lot, and it's on my shelf and it's beautiful, and I just want a YA fantasy. This seems to be a heist story. I'm down for that. But the characters really seem to be what does this for people, and I love me a good character. So, or characters. Anyway, excited about this one. And then last but certainly not least, I hope to listen on audiobook to Commonwealth by Ann Patchett. I've never read an Ann Patchett. I have multiple books from her on my shelf, and so we're just gonna do the thing and read some Ann Patchett. This is also a family saga. I believe the opening scene is some big thing that affects this family for the next 5 decades. We follow how this choice affects the family. That's really vague, but that's all I know about it. So this technically could follow my mood read card that I picked, but I also might put this in my back pocket and just like give myself an extra for a month that I really need a mood read. So we'll see. I don't feel as strongly about finishing this one, but I hope to enjoy the audiobook. But if I don't, I might give myself some grace with this one. So yeah, and then there's some other audiobooks I plan to read that are not books from my shelf, but we'll chat about that in our January wrap-up. So, we did it. Thanks for sticking around. If you did, I appreciate it. Please chat with me below about some books that you really have been enjoying lately. What did you read in December? What are you reading now? What do you plan to read in January? I wanna talk about it in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good rest of your day, and I will chat with you later. Bye.